it talks about, when you're walking with your notebook and capturing details, all of the smells, all of the sounds, all of the feelings, all of the everything that you feel comes out of page 2. And so that's very important to me. So I'm going to read a little bit from the book and maybe a little bit not from the book of other stuff. But I know this is reading. And how long do the readers usually take? How long? Okay. Just let me know. So this is just the prologue of the book, and it's going to kind of set you up for what I mean by the kind of writing that I do and teach and practice. And this is called The Goodbye Letter. Just after 7 a.m. on a Wednesday in April 1995, a man left a place called Ponca City, climbed into a rented Ryder truck, and began to drive. He had a buzz cut and a face shaped like a butternut squash with a narrow beak of a nose. The words on his t-shirt read, "Sic Semper Tyrannis," alongside an image of Abraham Lincoln's face. The man did not stop driving for an hour and 45 minutes. When he parked the truck next to a daycare center crawling with babies, locked its doors, and walked away. Inside, a bomb fuse fizzed. At 9:02 a.m., the truck erupted. I was 16 years old, a high school student in Linwood, Washington, 2,000 miles away, watching the carnage in Oklahoma City unfold over a television in a friend's home that day. A group of us had left campus early, and I remember sitting on a carpet as newscasters replayed the images of a fireman cradling a bloody baby and wires and pipes dangling from the wreckage of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. 9 children died in the attack, 168 people in all, but none of those lives concerned me. Not in that moment, not on that day. Shortly before Timothy McVeigh left for Oklahoma City, another man had been making his way toward the Whispering Pines apartment complex, just a few minutes from where I lived. His name was James Yukon McCrae. He had a broken heart and a gun. It was just after 4 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest when he arrived outside the complex dressed in dark clothes and a red and black stocking cap. There was a girl inside, apartment 265, my schoolmate and friend. Her name was Sangeeta Lau. At 16, Sangeeta had the face of a child, round and cheeky with long black hair that she smoothed down with so much coconut oil. Later that morning, she was supposed to be at school, where she usually showed up in lipstick the same shade as her nails and jeans 4 sizes too big for her 5-foot frame, cuffed at the bottom and held up with a long belt. It was a chilly morning, and she might have arrived to first period in her army green windbreaker over an Atlanta Falcons shirt and a pair of white sneakers. Her family had relocated from the island of Fiji to our suburban town, 22 minutes north of Seattle. The day before, in the parking lot after school, Sangeeta showed me her new white sedan she'd received for her birthday and told me we would go for a spin in it soon. She kissed its window and left cranberry-colored stains on the glass. Then she gave me a hug goodbye. Her mother had purchased the car with money saved from her job at Nintendo, where she worked the earliest shift. On that morning, she had already left for work when the first phone call came into 911. At 4:18 a.m., a female voice connected on the line with an emergency operator, saying that she could hear someone knocking on her window. The caller's name was Sangeeta. She said the person was trying to break in. A neighbor woke up and heard something too, like glass breaking and boards creaking or steel nails being ripped from their foundation. The neighbor looked out at her window and saw nothing. But back at apartment 265, the intruder was already climbing inside. The line went dead, the operator called back, and an answering machine picked up. Police units headed to Whispering Pines to check on a burglary already in progress. We knew he sometimes beat her, and we tried to convince her to break it off. Once she hid from James inside the apartment where I lived with my mother and brother. James was 5 years older than Sangeeta and did not go to school with us, but he often picked her up from campus. He had a cruel streak, like the time he convinced one of Sangeeta's friends to let him perm her hair and slipped hair removal cream into the so-called perm solution. She had been trying to break it off for him for a while. The assistant principal knew that Sangeeta had filed a domestic violence report against him with the school police officer earlier that year. Several weeks earlier, she had broken up with him for good, but that had done nothing to convince him to leave her alone. Sangeeta talked to another police officer on campus about him the same day. She showed me her car, and she stopped by to see her 16-year-old neighbor in apartment 267 around 4 p.m. to explain that James had threatened her. Sangeeta took down the neighbor's phone number in case she might need him. It goes on. But I want to talk about how you do something like that, right? This is not poetry, of course. This is very straightforward, but it also reads with a lot of imagery. And the imagery is not something that I can make up because I never make anything up. Okay, that's rule number one for me. And so how do you do that then? How do you get the images that because you can't pull them out of the air, as a novelist could, and a poet perhaps, which I envy. Well, what you do is I got police reports. That was number one. I interviewed people around the event, and I interviewed her mother 16 years later about what she remembered. I went through archives of the day, remembering what the weather was like, what happened that day, what was on the news, my own writings and journals. You pull all of this research that you've done just to create a scene like that. And this is